Yeah, people have to listen to me for like 20, 25 minutes. I love the way that you get there. So, it is Easter. So we'll get to don't go back to sleep here in a moment. But happy Easter. I love this idea of the song Feelings of Being Alive. So the first kind of meaning of Easter that I'd like to look at when we say happy Easter, it's this time of year. It's spring, the flowers are coming up, we're starting to think about what we're going to plant that we would like to harvest coming up in the fall. It's just a time of renewal and intention and a grand rising. And for people then that practice Christianity, this is a big day. Big day. It's like, in my friends that are heavy in the Christian churches, this is like, I have a friend that does music there, and he calls it the Super Bowl. This is the Super Bowl of my religion, and everything, like, they prepare year long for this day, because it's a big day, and how fitting that it is, a grand rising, and he is risen. So that this day, Christians and non-Christians alike that also celebrate Easter, we recognize the wonderful teachings of the man who we recognize, the wonderful teacher of compassion, kindness, love, unity, that we celebrate the life, the death, and then the resurrection of when he was able to ascend and also able to come back and communicate with others to give us all faith that there is something beyond. Truly an enlightened human being. Now, that being said, there's one other thing that I would like to recognize today. And it doesn't matter where you fall on the spectrum of belief about this. This is a perfect day for it, because as we recognize the master teacher, as Ernest Holmes referred to him, of kindness, compassion, and non-judgment, today is March 31st, and it's International Transgender Day of Visibility. And this has been celebrated and recognized internationally since 2009 on March 31st. And it's been recognized in our country, in the United States, since 2021 on this day. And it's a day that, the reason why this one means a lot to me is because I have several friends in this community, that in the transgender community, the non-binary community. And what we know is that when people are able to show up as they feel they are, to recognize and represent, and not feel like they have to hide who they are, suicide, ideation, severe depression, these symptoms are greatly reduced. And so I think it's worth recognizing that all human beings, no matter where we are worthy of respect and dignity, all of us. Now, it doesn't matter like where you stand, like myself. What I know in my heart is that there is nothing wrong with being LGBTQ, T included as trans. It's who we are. I know my gender identity. I know my sexual orientation. It's not something I chose. It's what I know. And for everybody and every people, this is something that is known, not necessarily chose. What we do choose sometimes is whether we show up and let ourselves be seen, or we alter who we are in order to fit in. What I know is that authenticity is the way forward for humanity. So we love them anyway, no matter what side of that kind of argument that we're on. And I think it's a simple gesture just to say, I see you, and we love you. We're all worthy of love and respect. So that being said, wherever you are, whether you're on the side that I feel or the other side, if we can just find that little bit of love them anyway, and just be open to a greater way of being, that love expands on this planet. And that's what I feel that we're all here for. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so all that being said, who's heard the term a foxhole prayer? Okay, I see a few. Okay. So for those of you who haven't heard this term of foxhole prayer, it goes back to wartime. I believe it was a correspondent in World War II where he was quoted of saying, "There are no atheists in foxholes." Because when you are facing imminent death, even if you are an atheist, in that moment, you're looking to something bigger. So a foxhole prayer is when you find yourself in a jam or in a tough spot or whatever it is, and you're just like, God, anything, whatever's there, if you exist, get me out of this. If you get me out of this, I will show up to church every Sunday from here on out. I will tithe 10% of my income, and I will help those in need. Just get me out of this. That's a foxhole prayer. And as we do, we get through our things, but quite often that foxhole prayer gets kind of forgotten. But, we don't necessarily follow through on our promises. And that's what we're looking at today. Don't go back to sleep. Because what's interesting about, this philosophy, science of mind, and in our foundations class this week, we were just looking at some of the early New Thought pioneers. And one thing that a lot of them had in common is that they were all looking to this philosophy and other New Thought philosophies for something to heal. They were looking to fix or repair something either physically in dis-ease or something in their mind. And moving forward, not a whole lot's changed. A lot of people find us here because there's something within that they're looking to see in a different light, something to heal or something to move beyond. And so one of the pitfalls is we show up, we lean into these practices, we meditate, we do some studying, we go to workshops, and we uncover things, and pretty quickly we can find relief. And then things feel a lot better. And so then all of a sudden we stop going back on Sundays and we stop that meditation practice because things are good. So a lot of times we get stuck in only practicing these when we're in our foxhole. So that being said, life, all of this, as Ernest Holmes shared, you read a quote that I'm also going to read to us because it's that good, that life is this cycle and we go through these phases. So it's that upward spiral that he describes. But what that means is, so picture the circle that we're on. So we go around this circle in our life. We repeat the same things. It's amazing how life works. It is the perfect mechanism to get us what we need. And so I'm going to use an example of, say, when I was young or when somebody was young. Maybe their parents, when this person started getting close to one of their parents, all of a sudden their parents started falling apart, aside or separate from each other, and one of them left. So now this child now all of a sudden has an abandonment issue. The parent that they were just starting to form with left. And this person may not register that. It may not know that there's a wound inside that needs to be healed. And they go forward in their life, and somehow it's almost like magic, or like a calendar that you could set, your watch to, that they go around, and every time they get into this relationship and it starts to get to this point where it's a little serious, unconsciously they sabotage it. They do things without even knowing that pushes the other way because they unknowingly are afraid of being abandoned again. And when we do our work, and I can speak to this firsthand, and I am speaking to it firsthand, when we do our work, we uncover some of that. And that's why these centers are wonderful. That's why workshops and classes are wonderful, because we go through processes to determine, what is causing our habitual way of thinking. What is causing the strife in our lives? And we uncover these things. And it's like, wow, that's huge. I didn't realize how much weight that was feeling on my shoulders this whole time. But then what's interesting, and for me, it really came up once I made it to practitioner training, which is after 3 years of studying in these classes and doing workshops, retreats, going deep within in that first year, which is the inward journey, and you really go deep. I noticed it a little bit myself, but it was more classmates that pointed it out to me like, oh, wow, how profound, because there was people in that first time that broke down and I can't believe this is the thing that's coming up again. I already released this. I got rid of this 2 years ago. those really deep wounds, we don't just get rid of. They're part of us. We change our relationship to it. So in this way, it's like the peeling of an onion. We do our work, and we uncover these things, and we feel better, but we're on that cycle of life. And the things that we need to get for our own individualized portion of the one soul, we call our soul, the things that we need for that soul journey development, they come back to us again and again until we get it, until we fully get it. So the risk of going back to sleep is when that thing comes up again, we're right back into that place of victimhood and powerlessness. We're right back in that place, and we're starting at square one. Whereas if we get into these practices, and we practice when things are going good, we're building up our soul chops. We're preparing ourselves, knowing that when those things come around, it's a lot easier to manage when we're already vibrating at that level. Because all these things, they will come around again and again. So that's when we're talking about creating this world that works for everyone, talking about a grand rising, so apropos for Easter. When we're talking about the seeds that we're planting for the harvest of humanity as the seasons and the cycles continue, what happens on the micro level happens on the macro level. And what that means is when we do our own personal spiritual work and we uncover those things, which in practitioner studies, we have to uncover our biases and our prejudices and ways that we might view some as less than and view others as better than, whatever it is. We have to uncover every single one of those because we're here to hold space and consciousness for people in need. And if somebody comes to us and we don't know who we are inside, and we haven't looked at all the things that divide people in this outer world, having it come up in a time when somebody is sharing their heart with you is not the time to discover that you have that bias. And so that's our work collectively. So the same way that we uncover the wounds within ourselves, look out at the world. The world goes through the exact same cycles. When we talk about like LGBTQ rights, we've had this discussion before, and we've gotten to places where we've decided, like, yes, everybody deserves dignity, everybody deserves to be in a loving marriage and have a family. But then we come back around, like on the other side of that circle, where there's, again, people like speaking up saying, hold on a minute, I don't think I was really heard, and I don't think I voted for that. And so now we're looking at that thing from another angle. It just keeps coming up. And will we ever get to that place where there's a distinct decision? It seems like we do, but then it seems like we don't. But the key is in that same way of just knowing love. Recognizing that we're not all going to agree on everything. We're not all going to get along. But can we recognize that we are all human beings? And by that, the master teacher told us, we are all children of the divine. We are all worthy. We are all inherently deserving of love, recognition, and the ability to be authentic in who we are. So that quote that Idalia shared with us, I'll share with us again. I'll read it for anybody that can't see it. It's, our individualized universe is forever complete, yet forever completing itself, in order that every experience may teach us to transcend some previous one in ever-ascending cycles, upward bound. We encounter it again and again, and the presence that we bring to it dictates how we experience it the next time that it comes up. And going back into the 200s, Greek philosopher Plotinus said, I am trying to make what is most divine in me rise up to what is divine in the universe. That's what we're here for. whether we know it or not. That's what that upward spiral's for. And it's going to, again, it blows my mind how perfect this universe is, that it gets us what we need when we need it. And we will be challenged again and again. And we question it and we wonder, like, why is it so hard? I've asked that question a lot in the last couple months because it's just, wow, I can't keep up with that. Why do I have to do this? Why is it so hard? That's what's required in order to step into our fullness, in order to step into that grace and presence and power that is whatever you call it. I call it God, but you don't have to. It doesn't care what we call it. It's just that presence. And the more that we connect with that and bring it into the world, that's what shifts the world into a better place of being. So hopefully, oh my gosh, I see kids out looking for Easter eggs. That's what it's about. Love, and just let people be, and be yourself, and be kind and compassionate to yourself first and primarily, because the only way to change the world out there is to change within here first. And so, well, I know that people being who they are, that there's nothing wrong there. And I also know that some people's beliefs say that there is something wrong. But what I want to remind people, what Jesus wanted to remind us, is that, let him who is without sin cast the first stone. I know that there's not a single person who can hold up whatever biblical or religious text that you live by and use to condemn others for their wrongdoing. I know there's nobody alive that can say, I adhere perfectly, so let me throw that first stone. So let's just let the stones go and throw those arrows of love that hit very softly and don't cause wounds. Very softly. That's where we're at. So our spiritual principle for the week is freedom. Freedom is the birthright of every individual. We are free to choose and create our experience of life. And if we don't agree with everybody else's, that's okay. Agree with our own. And be that which what you would like to see in the world. And then our spiritual practice is not going back to sleep, is the practice. So it's an ongoing proficiency and expansion of spiritual practices for the embodiment of spiritual principles. The embodiment of spiritual principles. When we constantly remind ourselves, when we wake up in the morning and say, I am that, I am. That's a reminder of how we go throughout the day, and we find that presence within us to help carry us. And when we remember to check in with that, we just show up differently. It's a lot easier to love them anyway, which ultimately, when we're all one, we're loving ourselves. We're all one, literally. So then our affirmation, and you can join me as this. I'll read it twice. First time we just say, I am a powerful spiritual being, and I raise myself by doing daily spiritual practice. So one more time. I am a powerful spiritual being, and I raise myself by doing daily spiritual practice. So I'm going to finish with a story that the first time I heard it, it was Wayne Dyer that told the story. But this is about not falling asleep. This is about staying awake and growing and going through these cycles. So here, this is written by, I'll give the author's name first, Portia Nelson. I walk down the street, and there's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I'm lost. I'm helpless. It isn't my fault, and it takes forever to find a way out. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place, but it isn't my fault. It still takes me a long time to get out. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it's there. I still fall in. It's a habit. My eyes are open. I know where I am. This is my fault. I get out immediately. We walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. I walk down another street. So, that being said, let's just take a moment and just connect to that space within. Just acknowledging that there is one infinite presence and every single living individual with all of our various diverse beliefs and ideas and notions of what an ideal world looks like, every single bit of it is part of that one infinite mind. So every single idea, whatever it is all designed to bring us back to that place that we come from, that place that I call love with a capital L. It's a field. It's a presence, and we are physical emanations of it. So being one with that, with all that exists, I affirm and acknowledge that every single aspect is a gift from God. Everything that we see in that outer world is a reflection of what we hold inside. Every chance that we have to question who we are, to ask questions, to open up and invite conversation, love, curiosity, all of that is how that thing itself gets to learn who, what, and how it is. That infinite presence that is all life, that I call God, the Almighty, the original source of all creation, the one presence, infinite universe. All of that is simply love expressing to know itself and feel itself. For without this physical reality, without the individualized points of consciousness to experience it and express it and explore it, it would never truly know the infinite nature that it is. So I give thanks for every single part of it. I give thanks for every reflection, painful or joyous. All of it is God. It is all a gift that this physical world, this life, this physical life, before we are risen up, is such a short blip on the screen, so I welcome every single bit of it, and I savor it like the finest foods that I can imagine, that is the gift of physical reality. So I affirm and avow that each and every person that hears these words is lifted up into their right place, that inner state of connection whispers in the ear, guiding us into ways of experiencing more and more kindness and compassion in this world, and through that, harmonious living follows. So in gratitude for that, and for everybody that's on their own unique journeys, all those not hearing my words, knowing that there is only one place, one destination, and it's all about the journey of getting there. So with that being said, I just affirm and avow, God is, I am, you are, we are, and it is a beautiful, glorious thing to behold, and so it is. So it is. So it is. So, thank you.